What is definition of ready and definition of done? Often people are confused between these two. Today I'll try to explain the difference between these two and what is the use of these two. I have shown here the sequence of activities that typically happens in a sprint. This will help explain better in the context of the sequence of activities as to where the definition of ready is used and where definition of done is used. We start it with the product backlog. Product backlog is written by product owner. Product owner keeps writing new user stories in the product backlog. I have added two more columns here, a column ready and a story points. The ready column denotes whether the story is ready to be estimated and to be picked in a sprint. And story point is the column which will hold the story point estimates. Most of the tools which we use to manage the product backlog have a story point field or a field by the name estimate, and we can use some field to track the readiness of the story as well. We can use either a state of a story or any other field. So I've added those two fields here to give a better understanding. We have a backlog refinement call which is ongoing. Some teams do it once in a week, some teams do it once in 2 weeks, and some even do it twice a week in the beginning of the project. All that we do in the backlog refinement call is all the new user stories which are created in the product backlog item, the team reviews those user stories from the readiness perspective. And that's where they decide if the story is ready to be estimated or not. The output of backlog refinement call is either story is ready after doing the refinement. If it has all the information, it has complete clarity, then the story is marked as ready, and that is even estimated also. Some teams do the estimates in the backlog refinement call. Some teams do it in the sprint planning call as well. For this session, I have assumed that the estimates are happening in the refinement call. So if the story is ready, then they do estimates as well. So as you can see, after refinement call, some stories which were not ready, they became ready here after the refinement, and some are still not ready. Maybe those requires more clarifications, or those are too big. They need to be broken down into smaller stories. Then we have a sprint, and the sprint can be anything between 1 to 3 weeks. Mostly the teams have either a week of sprint or 2 weeks of sprint. In the beginning of the sprint planning meeting happens. Okay, so now what is the definition of ready? Definition of ready is used here in the backlog refinement call. When a story is reviewed, so this is applied against each story. When each story is reviewed in the refinement call, the team goes through the criteria defined in the definition of ready. This is a sample list of all the things that are there in the definition of ready, but this is just an indicative list. Every team has a different list. In the definition of ready, the first item we have here is story is clearly defined with no ambiguity. Team make sure the story is clear. There is no ambiguity. It includes wireframes and design or specifications, whatever is applicable. All the acceptance criteria in the story is clearly defined, including the performance criteria if applicable. Story meets INVEST criteria. INVEST is an acronym. I stands for independent. The story is not dependent on anything which is not in team's control, and is negotiable, meaning the story is flexible to change. It's not like a contract, fixed contract. V stands for valuable. It has clearly defined business value. E stands for estimable. It can be estimated well. S stands for sized appropriately. The story is not too big to be accommodated in a sprint. If it is too big, it needs to be broken down. T stands for testable. It can be tested from all the aspects. So this is invest criteria. They check if the story is meeting the invest criteria. Free from all external dependencies, which is not in team's control. If there's something the story is dependent on, which is not in team's control, they'll say, no, go fix that dependency first and then review the story here. So after the story has met all these criteria defined in definition of ready, the story is marked as ready and then they estimate it. If it is not, then they keep it as not ready and the product owner works on it to refine it further. Then the sprint planning happens. So in sprint planning, they pick up the stories from this product backlog, refined product backlog. The sprint cycle runs, and at the end, when a story is ready, definition of done is applied. So definition of done is applied on the stories which are complete from the development testing perspective, whereas definition of ready was applied to really see if the story has all the requirements and everything that should be there from a readiness perspective so that team can pick this up for sprint planning. So that's the main difference. Here also, this definition of done is applied against each story to check if the story is really done. So this is also a sample list. It varies from team to team. I have put these 5 items here. The first one is code is complete as per coding standards. The code review is complete for the user story and the review comments are closed. All the testing, like unit testing, system integration, performance testing, is complete on the story. All the acceptance criteria that is mentioned in the story is met. A testing is done against each of the acceptance criteria and the testing is passed. There are no open defects above a defined severity. It can be defined by the team. Some teams might say there should not be any open defect which has a severity of high and critical. Some might say there should not be open defects with a severity medium, high, and critical. So it is really dependent on the team. This is definition of done. Once the story meets all these criteria, then it is considered as complete, as done. And that is reviewed with the stakeholders in the sprint review call. And after the successful review, the story is ready to deploy into production. Potentially shippable product increment is ready. So that's what a definition of done is. This concludes the video today. Again, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do that now. Thanks for watching.